Everyone wants more from their garden without running themselves into the ground. So what if I told you there was an easy way to grow more crops in less space, and all while saving you time too? Let me introduce you to the wonderful world of multi-sowing. Come here and take a bit of a look and let me explain what multi-sowing is all about. I honestly can't understand why more people aren't multi-sowing, but what is it? Well, it's the simply really rather genius technique of sowing multiple seeds into the soil or a pot, or more usually plug trays like this. You can see I've got little clusters of seedlings here as opposed to these cabbages here where there's just one in each. By growing several seedlings in each plug, we're saving a lot of effort, space and potting mix because we've got 2 or more seedlings in here rather than just one. And here's the best bit, the seedlings will stay together for the rest of their lives. They'll be transplanted together, grown on together, and they'll stay like that right up to the point of harvest, saving you lots of time too. So let's start our multi-sowing journey by starting off some popular springtime crops. Now I've got some lovely sieved or screened all-purpose potting mix here, also sold as multi-purpose compost, and I'm just going to fill my tray and then firm in the potting mix nicely like this with the fingertips. Now firming it in will make sure that there's plenty of potting mix in each plug so that it's nice and firm. If it was a bit loose, then when I came to take the little plants out of the plug tray, the potting mix would be liable to just fall away, which would expose the roots and cause them a bit of disturbance. Take a closer look and you can see that I'm left with lots of little depressions which will rather handily cup the seeds we're about to sow. And to sow, I'm going in with some radishes, some salad or spring onions, some beets or beetroot, and a little bit more spinach, which I love. Now, not every vegetable can be grown this way, but don't worry, I've put together a handy list of the best vegetables to grow this way, which I'll be sharing with you in a bit. Now, here's the specialised part of multi-sowing. Each crop has an optimal number of seeds to aim for. Now, in the case of radishes, that's about 5 seeds. So that's what I'm trying to drop into each plug here. Now, the seeds are quite reasonable sized and they're quite easy to see, so I can kind of eyeball it and pick up roughly 5 seeds and drop them in or count them in. But if I do get more than 5 seeds, that's no problem at all. I can always thin out the seedlings once they germinate if I get more than the desired number. And then, before I forget, in with the label, and I'll cover everything over once I've finished sowing this full tray. But wait, I hear you ask, won't the seedlings just get a bit overcrowded, all grown together like that? Well, here's the great thing about it. We plant our little clusters of seedlings slightly further apart and then harvest them in stages. So for example, with a cluster of radishes, I'll lift out the biggest radish and then do that continuously for each cluster until the remaining radish has all the space it needs. This works really well for crops that can be harvested at different stages of growth and means you get multiple harvests from each little cluster. The real champion of multi-sowing, responsible for popularising it amongst us gardeners, is Charles Dowding. Now, Charles has been sowing and growing this way for many, many years with huge success. And I had the pleasure of going down to his garden last spring to check it all out. And my goodness, what an inspirational garden it is. Now, please do go and watch that tour after you've finished here, of course. I'll link to it in the description and at the end of the video. Next up is onions. Now, both salad onions and bulbing onions are sown in exactly the same way. That's handy. But salad onions, we are going to sow more seeds, 8 per little cluster, and they'll be grown on almost as little bunches of salad onions. Bulb onions, I'd only be sowing a maximum of 5 or 6 seeds per cell because obviously they'll grow a bit bigger and fatter as they swell. Now, the seeds are quite small, as you can see, and they're black, so they don't stand out very well against the potting mix. But with a bit of care, I can still eyeball the right amount here, pinch them up and sow them as I did with my radishes. The seeds of beets or beetroot are lovely and big and knobbly, which makes them an absolute joy to sow. And for these guys, they're going in between 4 and 5 seeds per plug. And then for spinach, which are also really easy to see and handle, I'm going in with 3 to 4 seeds per plug. And then to cover, just scant handfuls of my potting mix here and just covering the seeds barely over. Most seeds only need between the same depth and twice the depth of the seed itself, so they don't need much cover at all. Pea seeds are quite a bit bigger, so they're going to go in a little bit deeper as a result of that. Now for full-size plants for producing pods for picking, go in with 3 seeds per plug. But if you're going to produce pea shoots for jazzing up any salads, then you can go up to 5 seeds per plug. So just get them in and then cover them over and we're good to go. Everything's nice and sown, and now it's time to water, of course, to get them on their way. Now I use a watering can fitted with a rose, and then to get watering I get the water flowing first and then pass it over quickly back and forth like that. By keeping things moving like this, I avoid water blasting the potting mix out of the plug tray and then getting everything all over the place. Once I've watered, I'll let it all drain through, then I'll just do the same thing again to make sure the potting mix is really wetted to get things going. So we've started off some of the most common, most popular veggies that can be grown this way, but of course plenty of other crops can be multi-sown as well, including these leeks here, these ones here. And wow, they're doing really fantastically. I may need to pot these on into slightly larger plugs to grow on until there's space available outside. These guys will probably be following on from my early crop of potatoes. And I can set them at the same depth as they are here. They won't need to go any deeper like individual leeks are sometimes planted. And then we've got chard as well. Oh, these ones over here. Now these can be planted as clusters of 2 to 3 little plants, and if you missed our recent video on growing chard, well, I will pop a link to it in the description below. And here are a couple of trays like the ones we've just sown actually, that I sowed about 10 days ago, and they're coming along very nicely. They're almost ready to plant like these radishes, but not quite. You can see here, for example, the beetroots are just stunning there with their lovely red stems, just beautiful. In most cases, we can leave the seedlings that pop up just as they are. But if you get absolutely perfect germination with every single seed germinating, firstly, congratulations. But secondly, we might want to remove just a few of the seedlings to make sure that they aren't absolutely jam-packed in there and do all have enough space. These are tasty little microgreens, so don't waste them. Lovely. And here's a table summarising how many seeds to sow and ideally how many seedlings we're aiming for. And we've recently added the most popular multi-sown crops to our garden planner, making it even easier to grow vegetables this way. The software will automatically calculate how many clusters you can fit into the space you have, and you can check the plant's information box for more details on sowing and growing it. These onions are ready to plant, so let's get on and do that so I can show you the other advantage of multi-sowing and growing. As well as taking up less space in the greenhouse or cold frame while your seedlings are still small, they'll also be taking up a lot less space out here in the beds. So while each cluster of seedlings does need more space between it than individual plants, overall we'll still be getting more plants in the bed here. I'm spacing these clusters of seedlings about a foot or 30 centimetres apart in a block formation. Now if I was going to plant individual onions, they would be planted much closer at 6 inches or 15 centimetres apart, which would give a total number of onions in a bed this size of around 48. However, with these clusters, because I'm getting up to 5 seedlings in each cluster here, that'll give me a total of 60 plants in the same bed from just 12 clusters. So I'm getting more plants for less effort. Nice. And then to plant, just make a little hole with your fingers or a dibber and pop it in and lightly firm the little cluster in again. All multi-sown crops have similar space-saving benefits. Now if I was to grow beets or beetroot in this bed, I could get 48 single plants in here. However, by growing in clusters, I can grow up to 80. In most cases, individual plants can be harvested from the clump, leaving the others to grow on. So for example, I could carefully twist free the biggest beetroot, salad onion or leek, and then let the rest grow on to harvest at a later date. This means I can essentially stagger the harvest in the same way as if I was growing individual plants, but with all the benefits that comes with growing in a clump. More harvests for less effort is what multi-sowing is all about, a noble aim. I hope you're going to give it a try this growing season. I'm pumped to try more of my beds this way and really cram in those plants. I'll catch you next time.